So, welcome everyone. Welcome to the third session in our Becoming Regenerative series. The subject today is primarily going to be about the notion of place and its central focus in regenerative practice. A couple things I wanted to speak to about the series before we jump into it. First of all, the notion here is that we're trying to provide these introductory sessions on this notion of regenerative practice and covering some of the foundational elements associated with it. As I said, place being one of the central ones. So we're trying to be operating in a way that is kind of developmental for all of us so that we kind of stretch ourselves and try and encourage each other to think beyond what we normally think about. And we're going to try and explore ways to encourage you to do that. The other aspect of this is that requires that you participate. So if you just came here to be a fly on the wall and listen in, as Sanford once told one of my business partners, that is not in our cosmology. The idea is if we're going to engage in a developmental practice, we need to be a participant in that. So to Josh's point earlier, I'd encourage you to turn your cameras on if you can. I understand sometimes you can't. And make sure you're actively ready to actively participate in the conversation. All right. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Josh and we're going to get started.
Okay, and if we thanks, Marcus. We often start with an opening exercise. By now, everyone is familiar with breakout rooms, so we're going to break you out into twos. But first, I'm ask you all to be grounded and with um, this idea. First, holding the place that feels most like home and its immediate surroundings to you. Get something in mind. Imagine what it looks like, how it feels. How now expand out to your neighborhood and move beyond to your greater community. Again, imagine the place and the feelings that emerge as you expand your horizons further. Everyone have a place in mind and looking at that? Okay, and now we're going to, in a moment, put you into breakout rooms. And these questions will be in the chat. And the question is, where is your home? That's usually the question we always ask each other. So where are you from? Where are you calling from? What does it feel like coming home? What is that like? What makes a place feel like home? How does your sense of place inform what you do there? And finally, how does that influence your life, your work, and your leisure activities? Say it's going to be in the chat, so you don't have to write them down quickly. And with that, Marcus, if you'd like to put us into breakout rooms.
Breakout rooms are ready. So we're going to give you about 10 minutes for this. Have fun.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody's listening anyway. So that's good. Sometimes, like, the a person off screen will just kind of hang out.
Um, oh, I didn't look at the new.
Welcome back, everyone.
We have everybody? I think so.
Should be.
Okay. Um, doing some reflecting on some of the things that we discussed. I'd like to offer a premise, and it's also in the chat if you'd like to take a look at that or be considering it. Um, you know, is it there? Yes, there it is. Okay. The premise is, places have an essence. Some of you may have heard that premise before. It's pretty foundational for regenerative practice. Um, Also, as in the same way that every person has an essence, and each place has an essence as well. Um, so, as for a group discussion, how might you describe the essence of the place or your home that you were holding? What was it? What's its essence, and what does it tell you about essence of place in general? If you go from thinking about your home, to larger areas or other areas, and how might it be related to regenerative potential in a particular place? What's coming up for you if you start thinking about your home and what the essence of that might be? I'm also thinking back on your discussions in the breakout rooms. Yeah, jump right in. Vicky, go ahead. I like
Hi.
hands up.
Hi,
That's a good way
hi.
of doing it.
I'm gonna tell a story. Kelly encouraged me to tell this story, but I'm gonna throw in a few, kind of mix it up a little bit. Um, so home, place for me where I am home, um, which is sort of my house in many ways, right? As it is for many. I had I had a save. I grew up in a fairly dysfunctional family, very dysfunctional family. So I had a savings account from the age of 9, and that was for going to be my home, for a house. And so I bought this place in 2000 and sorry 99. No, sorry, 2001. 99 I came to London. 2001 I bought my home. At the time, I thought it was a sort of short-term thing, really. At that point, it wasn't going to be necessarily my forever home house. Um, and it was a financial choice because it was the same to buy a place as it was to rent, so I might as well. And I really thought I'd be here 2 years. And then life goes on, work, blah blah blah. And I still thought of it as transient for a long time, although it was my
Mm.
stability. It was my little oasis of calm in a crazy city, and it was my personal stability. And then in 2007, London had a terrorism attack, which happened at 4 places at once, and literally the whole city shut down. Now, I was out of town working that day. I worked at down near Gatwick Airport, about an hour away. And so all the train lines were shut down. And my brother was actually in the tube network when the terrorism bombs happened. So the tube network got shut down, and we didn't know whether he was okay or not. It took a couple of hours for him to be able to get out. But that was the day London became home. And
Mm.
the reason for that was, for the first time, although I'd been very sort of transient in my attitude towards it before then, because I never, I'd grew up, my adolescence was in Yorkshire. I'm a country girl. Even though I was born and brought up in London, I saw London as a sort of necessity for the career and not my, for, long-term place. And so I bought my place with that attitude of kind of more just economic sense rather than home. And then the day that London got bombed, I felt very defensive, and I was like, "You're attacking my home."
Mm. So
And
Vicky,
suddenly, in my own brain, I'm like, "Oh, when did that become home?" You know?
and so what was what would you say the essence of London is though, as your home?
Um, well, there's two aspects. There's where I live in my little community and what I can walk to, and it's very green and nature oriented, and that is my stability. And then I'm within the obviously bigger city of London, where I go out for events a couple of times a week probably, and I'll say I'm going to town, and that's sort of away but it's still home. And for me, the essence of that is diversity. I'm here,
Uh,
even though I work in regenerative tourism, as what I think is the most diverse city in the world, which is an amazing place to be.
yeah. Essence of diversity. Wonderful.
Mm.
Yeah.
Other thoughts?
And what's interesting for
Well,
me within that is the stability of my little house within a crazy city. It's the sort of
Yeah.
dichotomy of the calm in the chaos.
Yeah. There's a little paradox in there
Mm.
that's
My life is
interesting.
full of
Yeah.
paradoxes, as I'm sure
Yeah.
everybody
Well,
sees, right?
life in general is full of
Yeah.
paradoxes, but yeah.
Kat, did you raise your hand? Oh, okay. Thought just adjusting your glasses. Okay. Anybody else that want to attack the idea of what the essence of your home might be?
I don't mind jumping in though. I had a lovely chat with Veta, and we were chatting about um where it means to be home. And I think, like many, like Vicky, I moved to London many, many years ago, 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, and came for work. And I didn't grow up here. Um, but now it has become home, but very much in that my flat is my microcosm and there is a community around me. And I am really proud to live in this very big, diverse city. But I'm at a point in my life where other things are starting to call me, and the question of where would I go and be? And there are essences of other places, such as more nature, quieter lifestyle, ability to have a different lifestyle. But then there is that question of here feel I belong because in London anybody pretty much can belong, and your connection comes through sort of a developed familiarity with your corner of this city. And I now work quite locally. But my question is, I suppose now is this big midlife question of if I move, would I ever belong, or would I always be an outsider? Even if the place holds essences of things, whether it's mountains or coast or lovely community or job that I might enjoy more, that sort of thing. Yeah, I think it's at the moment, the questions for me brought up a lot of sort of unknowns and a lot of conflict between feeling very safe in this little tiny pocket that I'm in, whilst I'm listening to my neighbour's kids screaming. Um, versus, the familiarity of my little corner of London, and yet not really feeling tapped into the big city and aching for something else, but also knowing that would mean being not at home. So,
And I hear a link with potential that you're,
oh, yeah, well, hopefully,
yeah,
yeah.
from what you're saying, especially if you're looking at other locations for potential.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
that's
I'll
that's
think of it
good.
that way then.
You backed right into it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Rye, what's coming up for you?
Well, the first part of it is I'm new enough that it's not an automatic and easy thing just to name essence. Essence, as I understand it, is a journey that's a very long process to really understand essence of ourself, of a place. But I'll give at least my thoughts on aspects of where I am. It's a small town in southern Wisconsin that is kind of on the edge of a lot of things. Madison, Wisconsin is the state capital, and it's what's grown tremendously. So that's the alive. And then just to the east of us is our county seat, which is Janesville. There was a politician, Paul Ryan, from there, and a General Mills plant. And, it's a Rust Belt kind of town, but we're a small agricultural town that has a deep, history of place and agriculture and all the rest, but we're on kind of the edges of a lot of change. So I'm not native here, and it takes being a few generations to really be considered a local sometimes. It's that kind of place.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting dynamic. I've been here for 17 years. I have a son that's in the school district, and I participate and see potential in this place. But do I know its true essence? I'm still trying to scratch and uncover aspects of that so I can kind of see what really is unique about us and what we can realize and what our next level in our nestedness is that we really can influence, beyond Evansville. So it's more of a journey and an exploration. We have some historic industries in this town that are really interesting. They go back 150 years and kind of back to the early days. So there's this really interesting dynamic tension between honoring history and welcoming change,
Yeah.
and truly being unique. There's a lot of really unique small towns in southern Wisconsin, and they each have their own unique essence that really is being expressed quite well in a lot of ways. And they have the modern elements too, but just grappling with all of it, I guess, at this stage.
Yeah, great. You talk about the time to learn the essence of a place, and I think we can all relate to that. Except, darn it, essences evolve, don't they?
Yeah, right,
So I mean,
right.
once you may find that the essence you have it, change on you. In fact, I think a lot of the conflict we see might be because people want to hold on to the essence of the place that they have, and don't much like the essence of them newcomers that are
Yeah,
changing things even, and there'll be newcomers, as you say, in some places, at least for a couple generations.
exactly. Yeah, grab a surfboard and ride the wave, right?
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts on what turned out to make us a tough question about essence? You want to go back to the essence of your home. Okay, Rick, give it a shot.
Yeah, this is a
I could
tough
say,
question. Hello?
oh, it's Vita here. Actually, I can't put my video on. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Okay,
Yes.
Rita, why don't
Um,
you go ahead and then we'll let
so
Rick go. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
I live at my home is a tiny island in the Caribbean, and it's got an active volcano on it. And um, my sense of place has been very much, and sense of home and place are giving an essence of many things, sometimes a little tension between things as well. I suppose there's the energy and the spirit of being on an island of 3,500. Everything feels very real, unspoilt, and pure. And there's an energy that comes with that is quite sensitive too. Perhaps because we have a whole island being created right with us at the same time, um, and that creates sometimes a freedom of creating new things and also fear of what is now and what may happen later, where we have come from, and all those things. So I think there's a tension in its essence, but there's also
Mhm.
beauty and freedom, and within any place, I suppose it comes back around to the fact that um, it's a perspective, right? And also every day is different.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, we share this premise that places have essences, but I think by extension, if you accept the premise that a place has an essence, then by extension, places are alive and we can come into relationship with them.
Yes, and I would agree that I've always said that actually, and thank you for reminding me of that. I've always said that this island feels very much
Mhm.
alive.
Yeah.
And I suppose my work and sense of place here is more in honor and sort of relationship with that aliveness, that spirit that I feel,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
Rick, if you want to take the floor and then we'll move on to the next part.
Yeah, I'll be fairly quick here. This is I was going to say it's a hard question, but I mean that in the best possible way because it really makes you go in and really think about it. For me, my home still occurs for me as not being where I am right now, but being a whole region where I spent a lot of my time growing up, and also when I was in school and college and whatnot and working. That's the southwestern deserts of Arizona and also the higher country of New Mexico. And it's still, I know that it's still that for me because when I dream, that's where I am. In my dreams is
Mm.
that world. And it's not in any way to say there's anything wrong with the world I'm in right now. I'm learning about the world here. But the world there is something very special for me. And I think that I have a very hard time putting it in words, but I know
Mm.
that it's compelling, the sense of when I go there, it's compelling, this sort of sense about this place. And all I can do, and I do this in my work also, is all I can do is go there and just open up, sensually to it in any way I can. It's day and night, seasonally, outdoors, indoors, man-made, natural, all the different aspects, and just sort of be with them long enough that I still don't know. I can't put it in words. I'll say it that way, but it is for me home, and it calls me. So I'll leave it there for now.
Yeah, I think that ties in with what Veta was saying about, the place has a certain feeling, right? An energy there. And it's often, yeah, very difficult to put into words.
And maybe you don't have to. You
Yeah.
know.
Maybe you don't have to. Real quick, Vicky, we want to move on, but
Sure. I was just going to add, we talk of home, but we also have multiple homes.
mm,
So I have two
yeah,
homes, certainly. There's London,
yeah,
Yorkshire. Kelly I was speaking to, she has two homes. And
right.
it's interesting how we live in each one. Yeah.
Yeah, different places speak to us in different ways.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so we're going to continue exploring this through some other lenses. So we introduced this lens of places having an essence. We want to put you in another breakout And this one is, we're going to use a little bit of a different lens. We're going to put place into context and have you engage in a discussion around a series of questions. So I just put those in the chat. We still want to hold your sense of home in mind that you were holding before. So there's, I don't need to read the questions. Everybody can see those in the chat. And we're going to put you in breakouts for about 10 minutes and have you engage those questions. All right, here we go. So welcome back, everyone. Before we jump into some reflection on what it is that you discussed, I wanted to share a framework with you that we use that maybe puts the questions that were in that breakout into a little bit of an organizing concept for you. And for those of you that have taken TRP and are familiar with this work, you'll recognize this. There's this overarching framework that is generically referred to as three lines of work. We talked about this in the first session that we offered. This is a particular version of that. And basically, the kind of premise behind this particular version of the framework is the project, or in this case, your home, is not exclusively its own thing in and of itself, right? It exists in dynamic relationship with its surroundings, and those surroundings are nested within an even larger set of relationships. And we refer to those different levels as the proximate whole. So maybe in the exercise that you just went through, the proximate whole might be the neighborhood right around your home, right? And what's the dynamic relationship between your home and its immediate surroundings? And then we took you out to like the larger community. So in this case, that might be considered akin to the greater whole, although in the work that we do, sometimes the greater whole isn't geographic. It may be something else, but in this case, we're offering it as a geographic whole. So it's the community that exists outside your immediate neighborhood, right? Is we're referring to as the greater whole. And what we're trying to get you to think about is what are the dynamic relationships between, in this case, your home and its surroundings and its larger context. And in many ways, right, the project that we work on in regenerative practice is really not the project in isolation, because all projects or all endeavors in a place, right, have impacts on that place and effects on that place, and vice versa, right? You see the arrows in this framework flowing in both directions. So when you think about the questions that you just engaged in your breakout session, and you kind of add in the maybe organizing way that this framework set up those questions and sets up those kinds of relationships. I'm wondering through this lens and relative to the conversation you just had, how does this notion of kind of nestedness affect how you're viewing this concept of home or place? Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, just an observation from the breakout conversation is that, and then mapped onto what you just showed, you know, of these sort of nested layers. To me, home was clearly in the interface between the house and the neighborhood. And so it'd be like an urban design. We talk about the front porch, sort of in the middle of the space. And to me, that's where it lives. I've never felt necessarily at home in a house, but I can definitely feel at home in a neighborhood and on a street, and with all that brings to the table, human interaction and all of that. So that was just an observation I wanted to make.
Yeah, home is way more than the house, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Go ahead, Rye.
Yeah, I think similarly, what I'm realizing is not having grown up in this place, the home is beautiful. It's amazing. It's this 1896 Victorian that's just grand, and we've taken it all the way apart and put it back together and honored
Nice.
the history. We have a historian that knows the entire history of every house in this town and gives the file associated. So we know the Hoxies were a part of this, and they built it in 2 months. But to me, it's just the place where we live. The yard is amazing. We do permaculture and native plant restoration, but really it's the dynamic relationships that we have within the community and the neighborhood and the organizations that we're a part of. And my wife is a naturopathic doctor in town. So there's all these swirling levels of holes that are nested and that we each have and that my son has. And so the home is kind of where we recharge and kind of set out from each and every day and come to hibernate at night. But it is this dynamic process that's ever evolving, and the town is ever evolving. So it's fascinating, and it's a very, very helpful context. And just for full disclosure, I'm in the TRP now, and just wanted to experience
cool.
this at the same
Yeah.
time, so I can kind of continue to hear and see different voices and exploration. So,
Well, what session are you on?
I'm in the Santa Fe, so you were a part of our play space.
Okay. So you're
Space
a
a
little,
couple times.
yeah, you're in the middle.
Yeah. We're
Yeah.
we're in the thick of place.
Yeah.
So thank you.
So let me ask you a question. So what's the value or the effect of seeing your home in this particular instance, or just places in general in this way, seeing them as nested? What's the value and effect of that for you?
I mean, for me, it's just a framing and a context so I can understand kind of where I can be most valuable and where I can really understand and explore the aspects of my essence that get expressed in this town. I have a lot that get expressed in my work and in other ways, but really our family unit and our essences are we're exploring and then applying. So I don't know if that necessarily said it, but
So
that came up.
So let me offer this and correct me if what I heard you say doesn't align with this, but what I heard kind of underneath what you were saying is that it enables you to potentially find roles
Mm-hmm.
in that place that you can play, right? That have effects on the proximate and greater wholes that surround you.
Much more
Is it?
eloquent. I'm still wrapping my head around Carol and Pamela and Joel and everybody's language and framework and how I can continue to see and express myself through it. But yes, that is very much
Yeah, there's this central notion of role
yeah, the
in
regenerative role.
a lot of the work that we do, and that's what I heard you bringing up.
Yeah, and value adding, right? How can I truly add value to this whole with my family, with my son, with my wife, with my community? There's so much potential that is available to be expressed for these communities. So how do we ensure we're playing an active part in it and really finding our role?
Right.
Great exploration. It's a lifelong process, I think.
That it is. So what else was coming up for folks in the exercise and in relation to the framework I shared?
One
And I think
observation.
that's the central question. What's the value and effect of seeing our places this way?
I think one thing that comes up for me listening in the group and also now is, and the groups I've been in, there's a couple of us always sort of reflecting on what it means to live in a big city like London is, and I'm a human geographer, so I always see things in terms of the systems, but also boundaries. And I think that when you're forced to look at things through relationships, the first thing you question is what is the boundary around or the frame around which you're viewing a place, because we have, administrative and political and governmental boundaries. And in London, your boundaries might be you're always near a boundary, not just a road, and a shift in sort of, that bit and that bit of town, or I sit between three postcodes. I sit right between two boroughs. I sit right between two TFL zones. And so
Mm.
you're constantly, whatever you're in, you're constantly changing the frame. And yet where I grew up, it was more, there's the town, and we weren't in the town. We were outside the town. And then
Right.
my little area wasn't, it was more morphy because it was farm. So it was, oh, that farm bleeds into that farm and that leads to the sea wall. So that context of boundary, I think is so important as to how
Mm.
people view place. A lot of people talk about community, and my first question is, well, not just where the boundary is, but what's the sort of the shape or the container of that. So I think the
Mm.
relationship to me are what are so fluid that can create that kind of dynamic, because whatever context you're in, that changes that
Mhm.
structure.
Yeah. And it's not just the lines, right,
No,
on the map, right?
they're
It's
porous.
right. To Vetta's point, right? There's potentially energetic shifts as you
Mhm.
move from, in your case, one neighborhood or one postal code or whatever it might be, or even in your example of the farms, right? There may be an energetic difference from one farm to the next as you get to town, and right.
Yeah, that farm you could safely ride through. That one, don't.
Right.
They don't want you. That kind
Yeah,
of that.
that this other one you're going to get yelled at when you walk through.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
right,
Ride carefully
right.
there and not on that one. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that whole sense of micro, and I think we're talking quite micro here around the sense of home, that way of thinking, or the way we're taught to think or encouraged to think, when that then gets scaled up into a national and global sense, I think that sets the tone for how we think about our role in the world
Yeah.
or not.
Mm. Kat, I did a tour with Unseen Tours, who are tours by homeless guides.
Ah, yeah, I know of them. Yeah.
And I did the one at Old Street. Now, Old Street in London, which is a tube station, but it's a big roundabout with a big underground kind of warren of tunnels for the underground, actually falls in four borough councils. And so the homeless people that go sleep there, they get moved on by the police from one. And so they go to the next corner. And then they get moved on. And so they go to the next corner. And they spend their whole night, these homeless people, moving round and round because they're moved on by the different borough councils. And you just go, I learned that on that trip. And I was just like, wow, isn't that, depending where you sleep that night, it depends what access you might then have access to hostels or to other soup kitchens or whatever. And it's like, gosh, isn't that crazy?
Mm,
Mm.
it's a roulette.
And they're exhausted because they're
Yeah.
spending their nights moved on, moved on, moved on.
Yeah,
Mm.
there's a huge sense of placelessness there.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Um, when I think of the work and reality like holistically and interconnected, and I'm trying to work with everything all at once, and it gets like I get lost in the sauce and it's like too much at once. But seeing the framework again is like, oh, okay, there's like, again, these boundaries, these energetic exchanges, or um, literal boundaries sometimes. And it's just a helpful prompt to create separation within the whole when you're thinking about the whole and recognizing those both exist at the same time. It's just a really good prompt. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah.
All right.
We should
Anything
move
else
on.
burning? Anything else coming up? I think we're going to move on to the next one. And
Okay. So this is the last exercise, which we hope brings it all together. And so I'm going to start asking you again to imagine your home and its neighborhood and the larger community. Those three levels, those nestedness as an example. And I think this works if really looking at concrete, picturing the house, picturing the neighborhood, even maybe what the community might look like from a bird's eye view. And then we're gonna ask you to start with these premises, and they'll be in the chat. Please have an essence. Places have an essence and are living systems, beings. We had talked about that already. Each place is similarly unique, like each person, right? They can exert a major influence on over the degree of aliveness and evolutionary potential felt there. Talk about aliveness and evolutionary potential. And finally, any project or endeavor that is not grounded in the potential of its place cannot be regenerative. So I'm going to put you into, with those premises in mind, we're going to put you into breakout rooms and ask you to look at two questions. How do these nested holes, as we call them, reflect the essence of its place? And what would need to change to align uh, your home with the essence of the place or your whole, your project, so that it's aligned with the essence. And as I hate to, as I say, it's not just the McDonald's that just looks the same in any place in the world that you're at. And they think they can put it down and somehow it's in the right place. It's probably out of place. So what would need to change? Okay. And those should be in the chat. And with that, we'll put you in the breakout rooms.
Welcome back.
Yes. All right. In terms of a group reflection, get down to what might be a bad pun, the essence of place in general. So in the context of what we've discussed, what does it mean to be place sourced? That's something that regenerative practice talks about, how the importance of place. And what is required of us to be in a dialogue with a place? We talked about a place having its essence, being a human being, like a human being, being unique. And, how do we have how can, if things are place source, how can we have a dialogue with the place? What's coming up for you all?
So just to emphasize, we use this term place sourced um, in the way that a lot of people use the term place based.
Uh,
Right. And so, kind of teasing out what's the difference between those two.
and, I'd also like to call, some of you have not shared in these group sessions. So if you haven't had a chance to share with the group some of your thoughts or what's coming up for you, this might be your chance.
Love to hear from the quiet ones.
Right.
Well, I'll take that as a cue. Well, Vicky and I had a lovely conversation about cities, and like I was struggling with this idea of this one kind of nested like Russian doll sort of thing because it's like this fractal, really. It's this
Right.
kaleidoscope of places, and we're talking about London and how it's well, for one. So I'll contrast. So Rye was talking about Wisconsin, and he painted a really vivid mental image that I could totally see how the essence of place there, because people have been there for a long time, generational. There's just something about it that's clear and evident, and like not singular, but like it's a thing. And then you contrast that with a city, which is lots of things. Even if you just go one street over, it's a totally different place with people from somewhere else that are kind of adopting some of the stuff from the city and bringing some of the stuff from their home. So what is that place? And it seems to me like there's a lot of at least one of the patterns I'm seeing is that in the US, so many people are transient and unrooted because they've had to move for jobs. And I was telling
That's a good
Vicky,
point.
when I meet people and they're like, "Oh, you're from Atlanta?" I've never met anyone who's from here because everyone's from somewhere else.
Mhm.
And it's so true. And I've watched that influx change things. No one speaks with a Southern accent anymore. I mean, I could turn it on if you want me to, but you know, because I go to school with folks who were from all over. And so it kind of dilutes the whatever essence it was. It's becoming something else, but it's really hard to put your finger on. And so I don't know what that has to do with answering the question, because
There's
what does it
this,
mean to be in dialogue with a place? Um,
there's
you
this
know,
homogenization going on
Yeah.
that you're getting
yeah,
at, right?
yeah,
And and I think what I'm hearing and what you're saying is that in some places there are just so many layers of humanity on top of the place, it's sometimes difficult to discern what's underneath all that.
Mm.
mm, yeah. And what's like committed, like what's here and what's just moving through, because it seems like there's a
Mm.
lot of energy, like Here it's like people will be here for a job, but they're not going to root for the sports team. Not that I care about that, but that's like a common thing you see here. People bring their fanship from they're not going to be involved in whatever community thing because they're not really planning to be here that long. And so it creates this like it's like a current you feel you're caught in, like a little swirl. But then when I go to other places that are where people are a lot more invested, like I'm doing some work in Sedona right now, and like that place has a much clearer energy that is like immediately more legible to me than a place I've been in for 25 years,
Mm.
you know?
Joel, if I can challenge you to shrink down your perspective. When you talk about Atlanta or even, London, that's probably hard to get your arms around what might be place source. But if you just think about the home and the neighborhood, does that have an essence that you can relate to or bring it into a conversation? If they were going to, and one of the classic examples we have is if someone has a vacant lot and they're going to build a park.
Yeah.
They decide to build a park. There are any way, innumerable ways you could do a park. But if that
Yeah.
park had to be the essence, to express the essence of the place, what would that look like?
Yes. Yeah, totally. I think that's such a great prompt because, it seems like scale that's so much of what we've gotten wrong about designing the built world is it's not human scale. So when I shrink it down to my neighborhood, that's totally a legible place. It's like a forest. It's a lot of old houses. There's a lot of wildlife running through it. We have deer in the yard like that live here all the time. Um, and uh, and there's a lot of families and kids. So there's a community here. Um, Once you kind of go one step out, it gets a little weaker, and one step out a little weaker. But yeah, absolutely.
So, what would be the essence of your place that you would want to represent in any neighborhood discussion of what to do with that, how to create that park?
Mm.
Hardscape, wild, playground, what's the essence of your place?
Yeah. Well, it's a very I would say there's a really unusual mixture of wild and built space here that is I don't think people build that way anymore, but there's like the whole neighborhood is designed around a very large central area called the Circle, and
Okay.
there's still forest and creeks and things for kids to explore, and you can actually wander through the whole neighborhood without getting on a street. You could just creek walk. You could just go through the ravines. That's very unusual. So I would say there's like
Mm.
you know, um, often it's either or. It's like a real hardscape park or like a wild park, but maybe there's some essence about like a healthy balance of these two,
Yeah,
maybe.
I'm hearing the essence of that as well. Okay. Somebody else can encourage those. Go ahead, Helen.
So I'm thinking about the essence of this place where I live in Chicago is called East Lakeview. And some people say it's Lakeview, and I go, no, it's East Lakeview. What's the difference? Well, it's bounded by Lakeview, but East Lakeview has the lake, and it has a particular spine of retail and um, restaurants and so forth, and types of people who live in East Lakeview, who, then it gets changed as you go to Lakeview view. And so, and in fact, Chicago is made up of 77, soon maybe to be 78 neighborhoods. And everybody's neighborhood is unique. And everybody feels attached in some way to their neighborhood within that greater city of Chicago. So uh, this conversation is helping me get present to what the attraction of East Lakeview is. And I've only ever lived in this area in Chicago, and I wouldn't live anywhere else. It's like, no, I'll live somewhere else in the world, but if I'm in Chicago, this is it. And I think it's I'm wondering about people and so forth. It's not about people. It's about like there's something about this place that and the
How does it express itself? And if you think of that park, or whatever, if you had to
well,
bring
that's
place into it, the built environment.
yeah. I mean, part of it is like it's got this. It has a park. It's along a lake,
Yeah,
and that connection to the lake is so
that's the essence.
extraordinary.
Okay, wonderful. So, and anything that turned its back to the park by the lake would really not be of that place.
Exactly.
Okay, wonderful. Somebody else. A few more minutes left.
Happy to go.
Good.
Hi, everyone. Um, so I have so many thoughts going through my mind right now. It's really challenging me, in a good way. So I live in a place called Chamonix Mont Blanc. So the highest mountain in Europe, I can see from my kitchen window,
Mm,
and the place where I live has the actual mountain name in the place. So the mountains are, I would say, they are the essence. The mountains are the essence of the place, and not just in the sense of the name, not just in the sense of the tallest one. I live in a very, very deep valley. People come here like it's a tourist destination. People come here for the mountains. People come here for the mountains in the summer. People come here for the mountains in the winter. But there's also, in terms of the essence, like I was saying to Rick in the breakout, that in terms of the weather and nature and the omnipotence of nature and the power of nature, I've never lived anywhere where I feel the power of nature so strongly as here, because the extremes of weather, the temperature, really impacts on what you can do within the space. And then also you layer onto that, your own kind of ability, your own health, your own well-being, your own existence within that space puts, you can do the most extreme thing you've ever seen, or you can be the old lady who like takes her walking poles and walks down the lane and in the ice. But the weather is kind of so, it flows through everything. Then another thing that I was thinking in my mind is when you said place sourced instead of place based. I was thinking about recently when I mean, I look out the window, I see the glaciers melting, and over the last 5 years, I've seen them retreating up higher and higher, and it's a huge reminder about the state of the world. And also that is our water source here. Like the glacial like water is our drinking water. It's the water for the valley, that feeds into the river that then flows out. And yeah, so I suppose, yeah, I've just kind of got this jumble of different things and thinking about how the mountains really are the essence of that place. And so if I was to answer the question about how you could create something that has a dialogue with that place, I think, I don't know, I'm just leaning on this idea of kind of something that protects the water, that protects
mm,
the water source somehow. Yeah.
mm.
Anyway, they're my thoughts.
Very good. You've introduced a concept that I hadn't thought about, the power of nature.
Hmm.
Yeah.
When we think of a place, we can think of the hardscapes and the vegetation and whatever, but I haven't until now thought about, what the nature is doing to that place, the climate
Mm,
that we have, that's not in that picture in my mind. And
mm,
I guess the question is how to dialogue with the climate. But that's, I
yeah.
think, something that's incumbent upon us to do. Yeah.
Lorna, I lived in the French Alps for a few years in various resorts. I never lived in Chamonix, but I was in Annecy for quite a while.
Oh, right.
In
Yeah.
one summer, which is beautiful. But I was often in Chamonix. Certainly that summer, I was in Chamonix 2, 3 days a week, and it is a really powerful place. If I think of that compared to the other places I lived, it's quite awe-inspiring, Chamonix, right? It's something to do with the size of the mountains and the power of the snow and everything.
Yeah.
But you also made me think about Chamonix in summer versus winter, say, or
Yeah.
Chamonix in season versus out season. And so, as well as having you've got these sort of different layers, haven't you? So let's say in
So
summer when
many.
you've got a
Yeah.
million Japanese tourists come and they're all taking photos, but there's that level of life of the very sort of transient, what they
Yes.
experience of a place. And then there's the undercurrent belly of the season workers. And then below that,
Yes.
the people that are permanently there. And you've got these kind of levels of the length of time people have been living there and how much they understand that
100%.
place, right? Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah. And then the different communities within that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I lived in a place in the UK, Haworth, which was where the Bronte sisters were from, and it's bang in the middle of the Yorkshire moors, and there's not much else around. And when I lived there, for example, the town wasn't on the national grid still, so if there was a power cut, we were all by candlelight. And the difference in that place when the tourists go home versus the locals and the living locally. Yeah.
I want to lift up what I'm hearing both of you say. And I think it's a way that you can come into dialogue with a particular place is you start to notice the patterns. So what I'm hearing you both name are a variety of different patterns from different perspectives, different aspects of the place and so forth, but recognizing those patterns that you're seeing that are emerging. So all that um, Lorna, you were talking about, right? Oh, there's so much stuff swirling around here. But then you started to name the patterns you were starting to see within that, right?
Yeah.
And that is a key aspect of this practice in terms of coming into dialogue with a place, is starting to be able to see and recognize those patterns.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Marcus, you want to take us out?
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to share with you real quick is so we call regenerative practice practice, and I'd like to offer, I'm going to put this in the chat, kind of a practice that you might be able to engage in terms of coming into relationship with your places. And so, a lot of the premises that we shared relative to place, it's really about how and what being place sourced is in many respects, is it's coming into relationship with your place and then using what you learn from the development of that relationship to inform what you do in that place. Right. And that's really what place sourced means in many respects. It's using what you know about the place, deepening that relationship with that place, and then using that information to inform what it is that you do there. And there's a premise in this is if the essence of the place aligns with the essence of what you're trying to do there, you will succeed.
Hmm.
And if it doesn't align, you will not. And so there's a fundamental premise that's kind of baked into that. So I offer the practice that we put in there. Just continue to explore coming into relationship with your place. And the way you do that is no different than the way you come into relationship with another human being. Right? You try to communicate with them. You spend quality time with them. You write all the things that you would do if you want to come into a relationship with another human being. You would basically do those things to come into relationship with your places. Too often we kind of ignore that process of developing a relationship in many ways is what this is about. So I'd like to invite we got a minute or so left. Real quick, our next session is February 11th. Helen Kessler, who's on the call here, is joining me, and we're going to be talking about this notion of potential and exploring that, which has come up a couple times in this particular session. But I just like to open it up and invite any final reflections, especially is what's shifting in you about your notion of place as a result of going through this session? Go ahead, Ellen.
So I was thinking, this was in my conversation with Vita, actually, thinking about the place where I am as it's a place that's whole and complete, but it may not be complete for me, or it may not be complete for you. And that was interesting. It's like once you kind of get this, once I got the sense, okay, this is a place that is whole, it has an essence, it's complete. And then I can start exploring from there and my relationship to it, and whether and I don't it's no longer confusing between me and the place. It's like I can either be there or not be there or ask questions about it. There's just it opens up a whole new opportunity for a conversation with that place once I realize that it is whole and complete in and of itself, and it has its essence in and of itself.
And it has agency,
Yeah. I
which
do need to
which
say
is a
one
harder
thing.
extrapolation sometimes.
Yeah. I want to say one thing to Lorna because, oh my God, I can't believe living in that amazing place. So I was a kid, I was a teenager the first time I went to that place, and we went up to the Aiguille de Midi,
Yes.
and that place was for me the most spiritual place in the entire world.
Wow.
It was total magic. I didn't want to
Yeah.
leave.
Oh, well, it is incredibly beautiful. I love hearing that story.
Mm.
All right, I know we're a couple minutes over, but any other final reflections anyone wishes to share?
A couple of thoughts that have come to me is how COVID impacted our relationships with place incredibly. Became much more obviously local, and more settled, certainly in my life, certainly to be here. Other people couldn't wait to get out, right? Or whatever it was. And also just this sort of nested idea is, certainly with London, people, there was, I can't remember who said it. I think it was Einstein said it was a series of villages, that joined up. And yes, they've kind of joined up a bit more these days, but that's what you feel is is all the different neighborhoods as you get with any big city. They're so different once you know a bit more. And it just makes me, at one stage before I started my business, I was thinking of buying a place outside London. And someone said to me, "Oh, don't do that. You won't have the same energy." And I think that's true. I think I'm very glad I stayed where I am because although I don't go into town a lot, I can when I want to. And it's the vibrancy that keeps me going, I think, a lot.
Interesting.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for participating. We really appreciate your active participation. And hopefully you find this way of engaging attractive and useful. And hopefully we see you on a future call soon.
See you next month.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Much.
Be well.
Bye now.
Thanks, Marcus. Thanks, Josh.